Thank you, Jodie, for all that you do and for all the hopeful things you've shared with us. We're going to cut short to about 20 minutes for questions and answers, so we'll have a little break we'll go and get our food and bring it back for the 5:30 session. So let's hear some questions. Here first, with the mic.
I don't know if you remember me, but we took a letter to...
Yeah, wait for the mic, please.
When we were in The Hague at the 100th anniversary, we took a letter to the American embassy telling them to stop the war in Yemen, and she had so much... She had years spent in the German Democratic Republic and looking at the pros and cons of that very complex situation.
Your question, please.
Okay, I'll make a question. Do you think that one of the key things that is needed in a vision for a new society is that people feel that they have control over their own lives? Because that's what was missing in the GDR, that people not only need to know their neighbors, but they need to feel that they have control over their own lives and that they're making their own lives.
Hear, hear.
All right. Over in the far end? Or did you... They were just applauding what you said, I think. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I think we both mentioned that. I think you have to wait for the mic.
Yes, Ann Wilcox. I heard on the radio that Baltimore is making an effort to bring some of the Syrian refugees to Baltimore to sort of help revitalize, to populate the city and create an entrepreneurial sense. I just wonder if you could comment on that as a strategy for revitalizing cities.
Well, I don't know if it's a strategy for revitalizing the city if, in fact, people build it into a community-building effort and that integrate it into something larger. It's an important thing to do on its own, but it can be brought together with a vision of how to actually build forward in the community, starting in the way that we were discussing. But I'm often asked at the end of these, kind of general wraps, what should I do it? And I say something close to what you say, but something slightly different. I say my experience, great experience and heroes or heroines were the early women's movement in the United States. And why was that? Because they asked, what should we do? And the way that usually the best way to find out was to get 5 or 6 or 7 folks together, get some pizza, and read something, and talk a lot, and then figure out what can we do together here, and then support each other. And that's pretty much what you're saying. That is to say, starts locally. I mean, who else is going to do it? Who else? Yep. Unless we do it. And that's the power game, because you can create power out of community.
Thank you. Here.
Questions. So, would you support what I've been proposing here, a peace TV show sponsored by Code Pink, International League of Women's Peace and Freedom, etc., by the other major groups? If we put on our own TV show featuring all these wonderful projects you're describing, and not only about peace, of course, but how we really build local economies, we can enter the public discourse. We have abandoned the media completely. We talk to ourselves online, but we don't do TV. We don't watch TV that much because there's not that much force up on PBS, but the ordinary people, that's what they do with their lives. They watch an enormous amount of TV. We'll advertise programming. We can buy paid programming time unbelievably cheap. You'd be shocked how cheap television time is on the major station, sponsored and advertised, and then we can put our whole agenda forward, which otherwise we're depending on the commercial media to do, which you just heard, they're not in that business. But we are in that business, and this is the way we could do it. So do you support that idea?
This goes back to our conversation yesterday.
So I'm really more interested in people not watching television. I think that I'm really interested in people finding their own wisdom and intelligence because it's there, and I think we need it desperately. I mean, really, part of why this is so important to be connected to each other is the we're looking at what's happened out of reality television. We are in a presidential campaign that really is a reflection of reality television. And oh my God, you haven't seen anything yet because virtual reality is on its way, and that's the most dehumanizing thing I've ever seen at the excuse of let's become empathic. So I'm not really interested in that. First of all, we don't make that good a television, and it's a hard process, and people watch stuff for reasons that are deep and take a lot of skill to present. And I'd much rather that we create stories ourselves that are local and inspiring and that we can share locally. That's probably what I'm more interested in.
So let me say, I'm going to take the essence of what you said. I don't know about television. I agree there. But building better media and building better communication is really important. And this is one of the person who's built some of the best media. For the Dan Ellsberg story she was behind.
All right.
And I have another film coming out, not to miss. It comes out October 14th. It's The Shadow World, and it's about weapons trade, and it will make your skin crawl. And if you want to learn about media, I have another film, The Brainwashing of My Dad, about Fox Media to help you be smarter on sharing, that we can't live in a world of hate. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So let's use all the tools.
Over on the far side, in the red.
I'd like to, in a very constructive way, push back on one or two things. I mean, one of the great sources of anti-war information is antiwar.com, which is a libertarian-oriented webpage. Probably don't agree with me and most of the people here in terms of economy, but I think we do need to figure out how to build bridges in that way. There is some overlap, stop subsidies, the major corporations and so on. And I'd be remiss not to, after Jodie's remarks, if I could, plug a project that I've been spending a great deal of time on now called votepact.org, which is a mechanism of reaching out to, heaven forbid, a possible Trump voter. That is to reach out to somebody in your life, a neighbor, a coworker, a debating partner, a table tennis buddy, who you avoid talking politics with, because my God, they might like Trump, and get you both out of your predicament.
Please, your question.
You save him from voting for Trump, you save yourself from voting for Clinton, and you both vote for the third parties of your choice. So you're freeing up, and I think that this is a novel approach, Jodie, of what you're saying, of finding creative ways to reach out to people who are not among the converted, as it were. Thank you.
Oh, Sam, I'm so sorry if anybody thought that I said find like-minded people. I said find your 8 neighbors, which is going to stretch you to learn who people are and make you smarter. So I didn't mean to say... Oh, okay. I thought you said, yeah. No, totally. I agree with you. I don't know about what you do together. I leave that to everyone to decide when they get in the circle.
Well, let me pick up on that, because we're starting in the community in a different way. I like to remember a kid I grew up with in Racine, Wisconsin, my hometown, who is very smart and very conservative, both. And we talk about what you can do building from the bottom up very easily. He sometimes kids himself. He says, I'm a community socialist, but he can see a way to build in the community to larger principles. And we have a genuine dialogue about how to do that. So I don't write off people with different labels, particularly at the local level, and particularly when you get away from the national media questions.
Thank you. Oh.
Well, and I also just want to respond to your education piece. I totally, one of the other pieces I saw in What is the Arc? The other arc was political education. I think too often that we feel the passion that we want it to change, and we feel the oppression of what we're inside of. But I want to also encourage everyone in this room, you have a lot of wisdom and understand the political theory and what people live inside, that our education system is so bad, but that we do need to be, hold proudly what we know about these systems and share them often and take people deeper in the structures that they live inside of. And so, thank you, Sam, for what you do and for what so many people do, but also that we take that on ourselves to be teachers.
Thank you. Barbara?
Thank you both so much for your presentation. A question. Hi, Gar. You and I used to work together at IPS.
I do. Hi.
Are you familiar with the beautiful report called Birthing Justice from Insight Women of Color out of New Orleans? And it documents and portrays all of the cooperative networks that women are already using all over the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa, Asia. And it has the most stunning pictures of these women and stories. It's all narratives of how they built their cooperative. So I just wanted to offer that as a resource. It's called Birthing Justice. You can find it all over the internet. Gar, do the cooperatives in the Basque region of Spain offer us any models? What's the health of those cooperatives now?
So the Basque, how many know about Mondragon? So that's the Basque region cooperatives. They're very interesting. It's about 80,000 people in a complex, very advanced high-tech as well as low-tech development model, and we've been building on it in Cleveland. Some of you know about the Cleveland model. The Cleveland model, which our organization helped build, is a model within a neighborhood of 40,000, drawing on their principles but revising it to community building. Neighborhood of 40,000. Almost entirely black, 20% unemployment, family income around 20,000, very poor neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, community-wide, nonprofit corporation was established. It's called the Evergreen Corporation. And hanging on it, to which it's associated, are worker cooperatives. And they're not just little ones, but one of them is a very advanced urban greenhouse capable of producing something like 3 million heads of lettuce a year. So it's a large-scale effort. There's a solar installation cooperative. There's a industrial-scale laundry to service hospitals and so forth. So we're trying to go to scale rather than only small. And the next step of it, which I think is really important, Rochester is attempting to do this now, and there's some discussion in Richmond to follow the same model. In the middle of that neighborhood there are very important institutions, hospitals and universities. So Cleveland Clinic is there, and university hospitals, and Case Western Reserve University. Every community is like this. Not every community, but many communities. They've got a lot of public money, health money, Medicare, Medicaid, educational money. So the name of the game is get them to use some of that money to buy from this complex that is a community building, not just simple co-ops. Worker-owned companies on their own tend to become capitalist worker-owned companies often. But building the community as a community building structure, but also using public resources in a new way to build up. So that's this, and this is an experimental model, but it's been on the ground now 7-8 years, and they're trying to refine all the bugs. All these things have bugs in them, but they're refining it. But you get the structure. Now, let me take this. I think the structure is very interesting because if you think about that, community as the principle, but also worker-owned cooperatives too, so it's diverse and not kind of hegemonic, but also using public procurement. That's a planning system, procurement from higher order structures, to build community, but also diversity. That's a very sophisticated model. It draws on the Mondragon model, but it is different. Mondragon doesn't have a planning system, and it ran into big problems when the European economy went down. So it doesn't have the state of Spain doesn't have a planning system. Mondragon's freestanding and is painfully developed. It's in the world market, but this is an attempt. If you were to generalize that, what you would have is next time General Motors and Chrysler go down, it would be public ownership, and maybe joint public ownership and worker ownership of mass transit and high-speed rail, targeted to building community in substructures of the pieces of that puzzle. Just the same model, only bigger. So it begins to get, I was saying earlier, we need to get away from generalizations like state socialism and corporate capitalism. And these kinds of experiments are on the ground. You're seeing this around the country, and people are trying to replicate and advance models that could be important locally for larger industry, but also begin to suggest principles for larger systems. So that's one of them. But
Thank
it
you.
does
Thank
draw some
you.
undergone.
So Harvey, a brief question, then we're going to need to.
Might I suggest, there we go, thank you. Might I suggest that there we go, thank you. That we use the defense budget to convert the whole country to renewable energy, and we do it on a community-based basis, because it's very easy to do, very tangible, especially Jodie in Los Angeles. We want to turn Los Angeles into a totally powered solar system, and we can do that with a community base.
What's the question?
That's the question. How does that sound to you?
We're all about conversion, but it's going to take a movement to make it happen.
So thank you very much, Gar and Jodie, and all of you. We're back to David Swanson.